This is News Talk 980 CKNW.
Where do we start with today's midweek Money Talk report? We've got tonight's U.S. presidential debate about 45 minutes away. Michael Campbell is promising to reveal what he calls the single greatest bit of symbolism. Is that the right word?
I think so.
To sum up the election.
This is the one-year anniversary of the federal Liberals' election victory, and the Bank of Canada lowered its growth forecast for the economy, and this time the reasons are interesting. So let's bring in Mike to make sense of all this. Okay, we got the big debate happening at 6 o'clock, but before we get to that, I want to know about this greatest bit of symbolism you're talking about that describes the election.
Well, I want to make sure no one thinks I am supporting either candidate. As I say, I can't bend my personal values into that complex a pretzel, I'll tell you. So both these candidates demonstrate such a lack of integrity or principle or sense of decency that I think befits the president of the U.S. So I don't think this is a hidden endorsement of one candidate over the other, but I thought it was a terrific story. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of competition for the best symbolism. I mean, you can just go to Donald Trump hair and everybody nods.
Yeah.
Hillary in front of a WikiLeaks sign. Yeah, there's so many others. But yesterday, the Clinton campaign had to apologize after its tour bus was caught in Lawrenceville, Georgia, literally dumping human waste on the street. CBS reported that they needed a hazmat team, a state environmental protection agency group there. They had to be called to the scene to clean up the mess. So what I loved is you go into social media about something like that, and then people are going crazy, of course, but, there are a lot of variations on this theme, but I kind of like this one. The Hillary campaign caught crapping on Main Street, America.
Oh, no.
I mean, how can you help that one?
That's a great headline, though,
yeah,
let's be honest.
I thought it was too, and I thought, gee, no one can be surprised, and I wouldn't have been surprised whichever campaign bus did it.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of subject that you are particularly looking forward to tonight? We know that Chris Wallace has laid out 6 subjects, 15 minutes each. Which one is key for you?
Well, if they get to these issues, I mean, that'll be the first time. The media's loved all the talk about Donald Trump, about women. Although, come on, let's face it, that has to be a little bit manipulated because it comes out 3 weeks before the vote, and, they have had years to report that stuff. But it's not, coincidence by WikiLeaks' Julian Assange. I thought this was another big story. He had his internet access cut off by the Ecuadorian government because that's where he's staying in the embassy in London, and they've been under pressure, of the Obama administration. You got Hillary was under fire for suggesting, in quotes, he should be obliterated by a drone strike. So there's just so much going on. But I'll tell you, neither hostage is held, hostage by neither candidate's held hostage by the truth. But in saying that, the question I want to hear about is on entitlements and debt. I think they're the two most pressing issues in America. The U.S. has just hit nearly the $20 trillion mark in debt, but the big one I still think is going to be unfunded Social Security and state pension problems. So they're going to get that question. I just don't have a lot of faith you're going to get much of an answer. Whether it's, a lot of political spin from Ms. Clinton or the cluelessness of Mr. Trump, I don't know. But I'll tell you, this is the biggest financial problem in the U.S. right now, and both parties haven't wanted to talk about it, let alone take any action. I mean, I think most people will be surprised at the level of impact this is going to have on personal financials, financial markets, and the overall economy. So that's the one I'm going to be looking for, Drex, but I'm not convinced I'm going to get a great answer.
Yeah, just quickly, I want to get your take on the debate tonight. Do you think it's going to be more of the same? It's going to be dirty? What do you think?
Well, again, it's going to be more in the same in the sense that I think really throughout this whole election campaign season, Mr. Trump's been authentic. I mean, what you see is what you get there. So I don't know how he changes gears all of a sudden. I mean, and Hillary Clinton has been preparing for this debate. I don't see how she, changes gears. I suspect that she's going to be a little more cautious because, the polls say that she's got the lead. So I don't think she wants to give too big an opening there.
Right.
Remember one of, her advisors said, why don't you just skip the debate? I mean, because they've got that lead. They've got nothing to gain, in other words, through this contest. So, I think it's going to be more of the same.
That debate goes to air right here on CKNW coming up at 6. You can also watch it live at cknw.com. Now, the Bank of Canada have announced today, too, yet another downward revision in the economic growth here. But what are the reasons, what's going on here? Is things a little different now? What's happening?
Well, we could just book this topic, it seems like, every month from a major financial institution or the Bank of Canada or the Parliamentary Budget budget office. Really, I mean, this has got to be the original Groundhog Day story, how many downward revisions we've got over the last several years. But you're right. This is, and by the way, they're talking about 1.1% growth this year, which is, Zippo, and 2% next year, which is optimistic. But here's the thing, and the reasons come back to the U.S. presidential election. You got both candidates talking about NAFTA. Donald Trump more aggressively, but Hillary Clinton still saying there's aspects that got to get renegotiated. Well, that's creating uncertainty for capital investment. I mean, who wants to make an investment until you figure out how that all sorts out? Has an impact on our exports. But here's the other new one that they threw in, brand new, because the new mortgage eligibility rules just hit on Monday. Well, the Bank of Canada estimates that they're going to reduce GDP by about 0.3% by 2018. And I think, by the way, they're optimistic on that. But again, the real estate, remember, I mean, every other month for ages, we've been talking about the boom that real estate's caused in the Canadian economy. Really, I thought the one really bright spot in the Canadian economy, 7 out of 10 provinces, it's the biggest industry. But now they're saying the new mortgage rules are going to certainly put a damper, in fact, a negative aspect on the gross domestic product.
So 1 year today since the federal Liberals came to power, does this latest downgrade, does it suggest their economic policies have failed then?
Well, my first take is no. It was a reminder that all the rhetoric during the election campaign, you remember, it was about who can control the economy, who can manage the economy. And that was nonsense then, and it's nonsense now. It wasn't the federal conservatives' problem that we had this huge drop in oil and resource activity. They don't control. Canada doesn't control the prices of oil, for example, and the Liberals don't and the Conservatives don't. So it doesn't make much difference there. I think that new mortgage eligibility rules, I think they can be held accountable for that. I understand why they did it. I just think they were doing it in a negative market environment other than Toronto. I mean, Vancouver's been declining since April. So I'm not so keen on that one. But finally, it shows that here's the big message here. Again, we want to pretend that government's got a magic wand. It doesn't. So we got record low interest rates supposed to spur the economy. We've got government spending, and the deficit's now estimated to be over $30 billion. That was supposed to spur on the economy. And we all took a pay cut because compared to international values, because the loonie is trading at the 76 cents range, and beginning of 2013, it was over $1. So none of that has resulted in strong economic growth. I mean, it can be a debate if we would be at zero without it, but still, there's none of that has helped. That should be the concern for everybody listening today, that all of that stuff doesn't help. And I still think it's because until we really address the regulatory burden at all three levels of government, and we talk about the feds regularly and, in general terms, no, it's all three levels of government. You got to talk about the tax burden there. And I'll tell you, until we do, I can guarantee we're going to get more announcements like the one we got from the Bank of Canada.
Yeah.
All right, Michael Campbell, host of Money Talks. You can catch it weekends right here on CKNW. Mike, thank you. We'll chat to you next week.
Great, my pleasure.
Vancouver's News, Vancouver's Talk. This is News Talk 980.